no other human being on the planet who has a more central place in the chess world than Bobby Fischer.
I'm sure the entire world knows the name Bobby Fischer by now.
He was the Muhammad Ali of chess. He was the Michael Jackson of chess. He was the one who captured the imagination of the world.
Bobby Fischer, where is he? I don't know.
What was it about him? It was the fact that he had an extraordinary charisma.
You are the best chess player in the world, without a doubt, aren't you?
Yeah.
Right?
That's great.
He was so mercurial. He was so difficult.
He was called the bad boy of chess because he would stomp out of matches if the lighting wasn't perfect and so on.
He was obviously brilliant. He challenged the Soviets at their own game.
You think the Russians are pretty worried about you at this moment?
Oh, yeah, they have been ever since I started playing chess.
There's nobody whose box office like Bobby Fischer.
We welcome a bright boy from Brooklyn, Mr. Bobby Fischer.
If Scientology had a celebrity in Leah Remini, the Worldwide Church of God had Bobby Fischer. As David Edmonds, co-author of Bobby Fischer Goes to War, declared in the opening sequence, Bobby was box office. He was a cultural phenomenon. He became the youngest player to win the U.S. Chess Championship at the age of 14 and the only American-born player to have won the World Chess Championship.
I got everything into that introduction except legend in his own time.
But after he rocked the international chess world in 1972 by defeating Soviet champion Boris Spassky in Iceland, Fischer retracted from the world of celebrity and essentially disappeared from the world stage.
Go ask your mama and make sure you listen. Because one thing is for sure, Bobby Fischer's missing. Bobby Fischer. Where is he? I don't know. Bobby Fischer. Where is he? I don't know.
Little is known about Bobby's life after 1972 because he essentially became a recluse, preferring his privacy over prize money. He never played a professional match again, at least until 1992, when he re-emerged to play and defeat Spassky once again, but this time in Yugoslavia. But it's clear that as the decades passed, he would eventually spiral into paranoia and anti-Semitism. But the tapes that you're about to hear, which have never been released to the public, shed new light on Bobby's life in the mid to late 1970s, and in particular, they shed light on his time in the Worldwide Church of God. In these tapes, Bobby comments on everything from brothels to the role of conscience, from his place in the chess world to his fears about being exploited by others. And mostly, they talk about his disdain for Herbert W. Armstrong, as evidenced here by his description of Armstrong himself.
But I really believe the power of the devil is behind this guy, because he's too good, man. Mm-hmm. He's too good. The man is the lowest. He's scum, man.
It's true.
He is filth. Yeah. He is trash. He is not a human being.
These tapes feature the voices of Bobby along with those of Bill Hughes, Len Zola, Tim Nugent, John Trichek, and Holly Ruiz. They interviewed Bobby at their homes on New Year's Eve in 1976 and again on January 2nd in 1977. They were interviewing Bobby for their magazine, The Ambassador Report, a publication which sought to expose the corruption, the tactics, and the hypocrisy of the Worldwide Church of God. As a kid, I had become mildly obsessed with Bobby Fischer for a short period of time. He's probably the reason that I ever learned to play chess or rented the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer, which, much to my chagrin, had little to do with the chess master himself.
Bobby Fischer got underneath it like no one before him and found at its center art. I've spent my life trying to play like him.
So when I found out that these tapes existed, I couldn't resist doing an episode that took a historical look at Bobby's intersection with the Worldwide Church of God and provided a snapshot in time of the world chess champion himself in the mid-1970s. As you'll be able to tell from these tapes, Bobby is a fast talker, often interrupting people, and he's full of nervous energy. Bill Hughes, who was present during these recordings, remembers Bobby in this way.
He's very fidgety, highly energetic, always in motion, pacing the floor. At dinner, we were talking, and I had a pepper and salt shaker on the table, and he would take one of them and slide it to one hand and slide it back to the other hand, left and right, and just incessantly, a lot of nervous energy there all the time.
Bobby first became involved with the Worldwide Church of God in 1962, listening to both Herbert W. Armstrong and his son Garner Ted on the radio. He would eventually become what the church called a co-worker, someone who was not yet baptized into the church, but who supported its mission financially. This is Bobby explaining to the Ambassador Report team how he got involved in the church. These audio tapes are digitized files of recordings originally made on cassette tape in the 1970s. The age and audio quality, combined with Bobby's fast pace of speech, means you may have to listen a little bit more closely than normal.
I've had some problems when I started listening to a lot of radio ministers. So every Sunday I listen all day.
Yeah.
Flipping the dial up and back. So I heard just about every guy on Sunday. And then I heard him, and I said, God has finally shown me the one, I guess. This guy really has power, authority. Doesn't talk like the other guys. He really knows his stuff.
Was it Herbert or Ted?
Herbert knows it. It was all Herbert knows it. When I started listening, I think it was Herbert mostly. And then they were alternating every day for a while. One day was Herbert, one day was Ted for a long time.
You just started...
I got a whole bunch of literature. I must have got, this much literature. And I said, well, shucks, I mean, that's not right. I never gave any money to a work, any church. I didn't believe in that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I felt guilty after a while, getting so much. I get in the Plain Truth for a couple of years, getting magazines by the hundreds. I've written for every last magazine I ever heard them offer, Right. I sent them $5 or something.
Yeah.
And I got this co-worker letter,
Oh, yeah.
Later on, I sent them maybe $20.
Bobby says that while he started giving just a few dollars to the church, essentially as a repayment for all of the free magazines that had been provided to him, by the early 1960s, he had begun tithing, giving 10% of his annual gross income to the church. And in 1972, the year that he defeated Spassky, Fischer gave almost a whopping $60,000 to the church, which in today's money would be about $410,000. And that money came mostly out of his $200,000 prize that he earned from defeating Spassky in Iceland. But when you do the math, it's pretty easy to see that $60,000 was actually more than just a 10% or even a 20% tithe on his winnings.
I gave so much, I was always giving that. I thought I'd give over $100,000.
Was this over a period of years?
Yeah. First time I spent any money, I think it was about '63. I think it was about $5. When I got that co-worker letter, I felt guilty because I was getting it for about 2 years, the magazine, I feel I must have gotten at least, $20, $30 worth of paper there. I started tithing regularly in '64. Late 63? Yeah, late 63. I remember December 63, that's when I started tithing. And I really tithed, though. I mean, I tithed on the gross, and I would double tithe. And,
I didn't realize it went back that far, Bobby.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, 69, 70 when you got into it.
Yeah, I tithed the whole route. I mean, I was really, I must have been getting at least a third of, my income. At least, maybe more.
Yeah, Herbert told me about that, too.
Yeah.
He was very pleased. Yeah, he was.
Sure
I don't
was.
remember.
Especially as he spent it, he was pleased.
You would think that by the amount of money that Bobby gave, he would have been a devoted follower, frequently attending services and even being a baptized member. But that wasn't actually the case.
When did you first start attending church?
I never attended.
No, really?
Never attended.
What, until you came out here to Pasadena?
Even then, I didn't attend regularly, just a few times. I wasn't sure.
Well, you must have been baptized somewhere.
No, I never been baptized.
Oh, really?
No. I wasn't sure,
Oh.
You can imagine how confused I must have been, huh?
You weren't sure.
Giving like mad and doing these things and hating what I heard, that's really sad, man. I was really screwed up.
Yeah. Well, we all were.
But I didn't know it. You know, I thought I had it under control. You know, I was just kind of wait and see attitude. I didn't know I was screwing myself up, you know?
Even though Bobby was not a baptized member of the church, he certainly practiced many of the Worldwide Church of God's teachings. In the taped conversations, he expresses a deep mistrust of modern science and medicine, and it's clear from just looking at his chess career that he practiced Sabbath keeping. This is David Edmonds again.
For quite a few years, he refused to play on Saturdays. Chess tournaments can last over many days. Professional tournaments go on quite a long time, and they play one day, then they might play the next day, then they might get a rest day, because chess is utterly mentally exhausting. And he would refuse to play on a Saturday, and so tournaments had to be rejigged and rescheduled to suit his demands. But he was capable of bending the rules a bit, so he was spotted practicing, analyzing games on a Saturday. So he somehow determined that that was acceptable.
Edmonds once heard that the Worldwide Church of God didn't like its members playing board games, but I've never known that to be the case, and they certainly weren't banned even on a Saturday. In fact, I have pictures of me playing chess after church with my other WCG friends. What you weren't supposed to do, however, was work on the Sabbath. It was meant to be a day of rest. So if there was a church objection to Bobby practicing or analyzing games on Saturday, it wasn't because he was playing a board game. It was because he was essentially doing his job. In the tapes, Bobby says that at the end of the day, he found the rules of the Worldwide Church of God to be taxing. But he says he never regrets giving the church so much money. Bobby seems to have cared very little for material things. In fact, he expresses pity for Herbert W. Armstrong for mistaking money for culture. He also expresses extreme disappointment when he met Herbert W. Armstrong, who took him on a tour of his home. He says that basically he was polite to Armstrong, but that he had no interest in seeing all of the grandeur and splendor that being the pastor general had afforded him.
I had no interest whatsoever in that. You know, I didn't give a lot of money to see that. I want some wisdom. You know?
What bothered Bobby the most was that Herbert W. Armstrong predicted that the world would end in 1975, with a 3.5-year period leading up to the world's final destruction, starting in 1972. As a student at Ambassador College in the early 1970s, this is how Dixon Cartwright remembers that time period of the WCG specifically.
I was a student at AC from 66 to 69, and I was in a second-year Bible class for part of that time, and the teacher was a nice fellow named Benjamin Chapman. And I remember Mr. Chapman telling us, now Mr. Armstrong will say, he will admit or acknowledge that he doesn't know for sure, but he just thinks, that we're going to flee to some place of safety, which people thought back then was going to be in Petra in Jordan in January 1972. And then very possibly Jesus will return in 1975 on September 18. And I wrote that date into the margin of my Bible. And it's still there in my old Oxford wide margin Bible.
Cartwright says that as 1972 got closer, some of the church's leaders began backpedaling on that date. He said some of the leaders recognized that they were going to have quote-unquote egg on their face if Armstrong's prediction didn't actually happen. And eventually, the church would even pull Armstrong's booklet called 1975 and Prophecy from its shelves. But despite the church's best efforts, Bobby Fischer never forgot Herbert W. Armstrong's 1972 and 1975 prophecies. He also never forgot that Herbert Armstrong got it wrong. And the fact that he wouldn't apologize for being wrong is what really incensed Bobby. Here are some different clips of Bobby talking about that disappointment in his conversation with the Ambassador Report team.
I couldn't believe my eyes when I read Herbert Armstrong's explanation in 72. We never really set those dates. Some people misinterpreted it. And if we hadn't done it, we wouldn't have had the impetus to grow, so it was really a good thing.
Oh
Everybody's been telling me this for years, and now he's half denying he ever said it. When I remember he said it, and he said it 100 times. And then on top of it, he won't even apologize if he did say it.
He's never really admitted he was wrong.
Yeah.
He won't admit that.
He says, show me one time where I have been wrong and I have hurt the membership of the church or hurt the church.
I'm sure the way he says it, it sounds great too.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to read his stuff. That guy is dynamite, you know?
Yeah.
He calms you down, he puts you to sleep, he lulls you, you feel great. Anybody can make a mistake, get carried away, but he did it in 39, he did it in 40s. So it's just a modus operandi to excite people to give away everything.
That's right.
You know?
They don't
I'll
sell
tell you something right now.
That is the most vicious thing you can do. I mean, I could have known that it was all just a pack of lies, and he was just playing with me. Lying after letter after letter after letter after letter after letter. The man is the lowest. He's scum, man.
Bobby's insights that Herbert W. Armstrong had a long history of making predictions that never came to fruition is spot on. I also think Bobby's pretty astute to note that the church's most financially successful times coincided with these end-of-time prophecy frenzies. The other thing that made Bobby upset was the hypocrisy of the church's leaders. During his conversations with the Ambassador Report team, somebody tells a story of a college student at Ambassador who apparently really struggled with masturbation and the guilty feelings that he had for not being able to stop. About 3 or 4 hours after having a Bible class where the professor had lectured about the sinful nature of self-pleasure, apparently the student jumped off a bridge and committed suicide. Bobby didn't think that masturbation was a problem. And Bobby didn't even think that when it came out that Garner Ted Armstrong, Herbert W. Armstrong's son, and the heir apparent to the Worldwide Church of God, had been having multiple affairs, but the affairs themselves were a problem. They didn't really seem to bother Bobby that much. He says on the tapes that when two people have consensual sex, that's really their business. But what bothered Bobby was that Garner Ted Armstrong seemed to have been a hypocrite. It was the fact that Garner Ted was on the radio telling people not to engage in premarital or extramarital sex, to not lust after women, or to covet thy neighbor's wife, that he seemed to be running around doing those exact same things.
Under the backdrop of all this, you have some of the most perverted sexual relations going on by these head men. And
Well, to me, masturbation is no big thing. I'm not even sure it's a sin. Because, you know, who are you hurting, you know?
Yeah, well, I personally feel that there is comfort in a man saying, look, I enjoy sex, and if it's by mutual consent, who are you? Then, yeah, but what he's doing is he's taking money from people on the basis that he is not doing that.
Right. I mean, this guy is like, say I were to every day come on the air telling people don't play chess for 20 years, you know? When I run home and play chess every day. You know, that's what he's doing.
That's so true.
Yeah, this is too much, you know?
And then make money on it too, you know?
Man, I'm playing all night and day, you know, lustfully moving the pieces, getting books, mailing away for books, and playing tournaments.
I can tell you for a fact that while you were being hustled into the Worldwide Church of God, Garner Ted Armstrong was committing adultery.
Yeah.
I can tell
And while he was on the air,
Yeah, while he was on the air talking to you and Guy was supposedly calling you, he was somebody.
Bobby also says that he didn't like the hypocrisy of another man named Osama Goto. To be honest, I had never heard of Goto growing up, but he was a Japanese man that Herbert W. Armstrong paid to help him meet world leaders, to do his bidding internationally in his absence. It was also his job to help Armstrong spread into Asia, and apparently Bobby hung out with Goto in Tokyo back in 1973.
Well, we once went to a nightclub and they had these what they call hostesses that come around, you know.
Geishas?
Not geishas, they're hostesses, you know. They cost a fortune, these girls. You know, they sit at your table for a few minutes and drink some, and, you know, and you pay $10 for 5 minutes, whatever, you know. get a couple of $100 bill. Anyway, so after this, though, we took a couple of these geishas out to a restaurant, and he seemed to know them awfully well. And, well, nothing much. He just was feeling them up, which I didn't think was kind of surprising to me, Supposedly a man next to the man who was next to God.
Oh, yeah.
Rubbing their breast. And,
This was Herbert, or?
This was Godo.
Oh, okay.
Rubbing their breast, and seemed kind of lustful for a man who's next to God,
Godo also apparently tried to set Bobby up with a sex massage parlor while he was in Japan, too.
We went to a massage parlor a couple of times. I didn't have any sex with her. It was legitimate, pretty legitimate. But once he gave me some kind of tickets, So he said, "This is a massage parlor, free ticket." So I know this girl there in Japan. I said, "Where is this?" She looked at it. She says, "This is not just a massage parlor. This is where men go because they must."
Mm.
I said, "Oh no, he wouldn't give me something like that. This is just a massage parlor." And she called him up. He said, "No, it has the name. It means it's like a pornographic name in Japanese."
Oh, that's very interesting. I'll bet it was paid for with tithes, too.
Anyway, she called up and she said, you can go there and it's all paid for. All you have to do is leave 20% tip. I think it was like a $20 tip or something. God. But anyway, so I didn't go, But I kind of surprised me. She was sure, but I figured, she was already asked Godo about it. I said, "What is this?" She said, "They told me this is a whorehouse."
What did Godo say when you?
He said, "Oh, no. Who told you that?"
Oh, he always plays dumb. That's his way out. When he doesn't want to be responsible, he doesn't understand a thing.
In the press, Bobby has often been depicted as socially awkward, and it's clear that over the decades he suffered from paranoia and probably hyperacuity. It's also very likely that he was neurodivergent, somewhere on the spectrum. David Edmonds puts it this way.
So he was a boy in the 1940s and the 1950s, and one has to be cautious about diagnosing anybody from a distance. But it seems plausible, I spoke to various experts about this, it seems plausible that these days he would have been diagnosed with some sort of autism spectrum disorder. He ticked almost every box. He was socially awkward. He took things literally. He was totally obsessive about certain things, of course, particularly chess. He liked routine. He got upset if the days didn't go sort of as he'd planned. So he ticked almost all the boxes. I think it's extremely plausible to claim that he was somewhere quite high up the autism spectrum disorder.
I think sometimes that people inaccurately assume that people on the spectrum can't be funny or charismatic, and Puppy shows that that's just not true. In one part of the conversation, Tim Nugent says that Ambassador College was suffering from a string of petty thefts, and so they decided to subject each student to a polygraph test to see if they could ferret out who the thief was. And Bobby just can't believe the invasion of privacy or the power move of that college, and he makes what's, in my opinion, a very funny joke.
We should get Herbert Armstrong on the machine. Ask if he's God's apostle. He'd probably scream it, the machine would say, "Lie, lie."
The machine would probably just go.
That part of the recording did actually make me laugh out loud the first time that I heard it. But the thing that frustrates me as a curious person listening to these tapes is what specific effects the church experience had on Bobby. He drops hints often, but no one from the Ambassador report actually presses him for details. So all we have are things that he says like this.
I don't mind the money. I don't like have my mind and body played with. Money is paper. I know I can make money. Even if I can't, I don't have that kind of desire. All I like is to have a nice quiet room and some food. I'm not that kind of guy.
Right.
But my mind and body, I don't like to have messed with. That makes me furious.
What can you say?
I don't even think about my soul in those terms because I don't really believe. I don't believe truly that someone can take away your salvation.
Oh no, of course not.
But even by tricking you, I don't really believe that because that wouldn't be right, you know. I don't think God would be like that, you know, because then it wouldn't be, you know, you losing it. The person has to lose it himself, and it can't be because somebody even misled him. It has to be his decision, and that even if he got every single break, he would have done it. He would have blown it. That's what I believe. So what Herbert Armstrong is doing is just screwing up guys, physically ruining their lives. Well, I kind of split my life into two pieces. One was where my chess life and my career, I kept my sanity, so to speak, and my logic, dealing with people and my playing conditions. And then the other was the other life, you know what I mean? Even though I tried to do, you know, apply what I learned in the church to my chess career too. But I still, you know, was studying chess and living, you know, wasn't, you know, just trusting in God to give me the moves, you know.
Yeah. Well,
or a win, you know. He tells you that you can't trust your conscience.
That's right.
Human nature is wicked. There's a downward pull in your body, just like it's like gravity, just like carrying a book. And then you can develop that character by resisting. So you resist your common sense, he's telling you basically.
Yeah.
Because God's masterpiece was to put the nature of the devil in us so that we have to resist it and develop character. So after you hear all that, you become really far out because every time you hear common sense, that's the devil speaking to me. That's the devil whispering, you know? Every time you hear anything logical. But it keeps coming back. You can't kill common sense till you're dead, you know? But that stuff about those pilots saying they crash a plane into a mountain, I thought those same thoughts too. HWA told me to do this, something, you know, suicide, I'd do it.
Bobby often asks the people in the room if they believe in God or the Bible or in demons or an afterlife. And it's clear that he's still figuring out the answers to these questions. One of the things that I find interesting, though, given his later descent into paranoia and mental illness, is that Bobby says he often hears voices, and it's not clear if he considers those voices to be just thoughts in his head, or if he actually hears them as if they're coming from somewhere else. You can hear an example of this when Bobby Fischer starts to talk about Herbert W. Armstrong and how sometimes in his mind he would object to some of the things that Herbert was saying.
And when these thoughts come to my head, they're always right. I've known that all my life. When I hear these voices say, you know, it's always, that's my conscience, that's me, man. It never lets me down, you know? And it says, he's lying. I heard a voice, just like, he's lying. Mm-hmm. And then I just later on, I knew it had to be a demon, you know? Mm-hmm. Couldn't have been just my good common sense telling me, you know what I mean? Because it was just so obvious the way his lips were moving, something just, he's lying, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
and every time I heard that kind of voice in my head, whether I followed it or going to get, it's always been the right voice. Every time in my life, man. In retrospect, you know, looking back. Every last time, man. And your conscience, that's God, you know. God gave you that conscience. He had to give you protection from this evil world. That's what he gave us. He gave us a mind, and we're, you know, you talk about supernatural. You talk about we're supernatural beings ourselves. Just that we can think, you know. We're supernatural without ever God even talking to us directly.
People on the spectrum often struggle to read social cues, but it's clear from these tapes that Bobby was very keenly aware when he was being used by other people, and he was very on guard about people exploiting him.
You were really used extensively in the church. I don't know if you realize that or not.
Oh, yeah. Herbert bragged about you.
Oh, Bobby Fischer, world chess champion, the Worldwide Church of God. Man, you were the
One
craze.
thing that troubled me about that was I came out here in '64 to the college, and I wanted to meet Herbert and Garner Ted Armstrong. They wouldn't meet me. Yeah. Then I came out here. I'm not that much better a player now than I was in '64. I mean, I was the best in '64. I just didn't have the title. But then I came out here with the title, and then suddenly I'm being, you know, jetted all around. That's it. You know, but what is the real difference? Just I got more publicity in '72. Well, I mean, you know, it's a person, I'm the same, and it's a chess player, wasn't even that much more. Strictly a matter of publicity. That's kind of troubled me, you know.
And Bobby is leery about the Ambassador Report folks, too. He knows his interview is meant to appear alongside an expose on Garner Ted, and that the article will describe the adulterous affairs of Herbert's son and the famous televangelist of the Worldwide Church of God. He wants the editors to let him hear the taped conversations that the editors say they have, with the women confirming that those adulterous rumors are true.
But you're going to come out with heavy stuff in the next issue, hitting GPA, and if I'm going to be in your issue or help you in some way, I'd like to know it's true. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I carry heavy stuff when you start accusing me of that. You know?
It is extremely heavy.
I wouldn't want to be associated with something like that turned out to be untrue.
Flop, sure.
You know.
And on the other
I don't hardly even know you guys. You know, I could get screwed, man. But I want to do this. I believe in this.
And that's why
I mean,
better
what I would say would be true, but I'd be associated with a magazine that turned out to be, a real scandal. I want to be sure that those sex things are true, because I'm going to be associated with it indirectly, even indirectly. You know what I mean? I don't give interviews, I don't get involved in anything like this, but I'm really mad. I want to help people, protect them.
The other thing that impressed me about Bobby is that he was an incredible analyzer of people's rhetoric. In this clip, he talks about a guy named Roy Masters, who, like Herbert W. Armstrong, also had a radio quote-unquote ministry, except he wasn't preaching doomsday apocalyptic prophecies and Sabbatarian teachings. His organization revolved around the concept of hypnotism.
This guy, Roy Masters, I don't recommend everything he says. I said, he deprograms guys. That's his thing. That's what he said. He dehypnotizes guys, he said. He said he used to be a hypnotist. He knows all the tricks. I think he himself is probably a dangerous man, because I listened to him for several years, and he's changing his stuff. It used to be that he says, don't get hung up on Roy Masters. Don't become a Roy Masters-kaholic. And one day he says, I just was thinking, and somebody called me and said something, and they told me that, that they really do need me for a time. So I'm not going to say don't be a Roy Masters-kaholic anymore, and don't get hung on me, because just for a time, and if you're going to get hung up on something, let it be me, just for a time.
Yes.
And then he says, I don't manipulate you for money. I know all the tricks. He says, I can say truth from the Bible and say it obnoxiously, make you hate me, and then you're guilty, then you give your money. But I don't use them. I can get a tenth of your money. I don't use that. I know organization, But now he's got this ad I hear. He's changing around. He says, the ad goes like this. It says, the sin of omission is just as damning as any sin of commission. If you know that you've gotten benefit out of this program, then shouldn't you give just a little and make it possible for others?
You're kidding.
Oh, boy.
So I think that a lot of guys are going to leave something like this, say, and they're going to go to those guys who are going to give them complete freedom. They're going to wash their brains free of all these organized guys, tell them they can do what they want, they can rely on themselves, and that their conscience is their guide, and that that's the way to go, and that these guys have misled them, and that you don't need anybody. And then they're going to suck him in, and then they're going to start pulling the authority yiddle by yiddle.
Bobby Fischer spent almost 15 years invested in the Worldwide Church of God, and he essentially left, as these tapes reveal, in 1977. This is Edmonds again.
It's not a surprise that he falls out with the Worldwide Church of God. In a way, the surprise is that his association had lasted so long, that it lasted for, almost a decade. The surprise is that they had lived with each other for that long. And it's fair to say that he fell out with almost everybody eventually. He's not a compromiser. He's not somebody who will meet somebody halfway. And presumably from 1972, what was in it for the Worldwide Church of God was that they had this very famous person. So that would have provided them with status and prestige, as well as money, of course. But in addition to that, they had this flagship association with this hero of the American chess world. So you can see what was in it for the Worldwide Church of God, and it's just a surprise that Fischer stayed with them.
Bobby Fischer died in 2008. The interviews that Bobby Fischer did with the Ambassador Report to renounce the Worldwide Church of God were published in 1977 and can be read online today. We provided the link in the show notes of this episode if you'd like to find it. Bobby gave these interviews with the full understanding that they were being recorded and that what he said in them would be used and made available for public consumption. I'm thankful that the Fischer tapes have survived in Bill Hughes's possession for almost 5 decades. They've never been publicly heard until now, and I'd like to extend my gratitude to Hughes for allowing me to access these tapes, and to Margaret and Len Zola for taking me through how they came to be. I think they provide an interesting historical record of both the Worldwide Church of God and an insight into Bobby Fischer himself, at least as he existed in 1976 and 1977. Next up on Worldwide, the Unchosen Church.
My dad would go to work at 6 a.m. As soon as he left, she'd pull out a small baby Christmas tree from the closet that she had hidden. She'd pull out every gift. She'd wake us up. We'd open gifts. Boom, boom, got a gift. That's beautiful. Take a picture. All right, your daddy gonna be home in a half hour. Pack it up. Let's go. And it'd be like, what did you do today? Nothing. We didn't do anything.
Join us next week as we talk and laugh with Lanisa Frederick, a comedian and now Hollywood actress. We'll discuss growing up in an economically struggling family with one parent who was a WCG believer and one who was not. We'll also talk about why cults are not just a white people thing. Worldwide, The Unchosen Church is written, produced, and hosted by me, Trisha Jenkins. Music in this episode was licensed by Soundstripe. Sound design and editing by 13 Media. If you would like to send us a question or a comment, please reach out via email at worldwidepod11@gmail.com or DM us on social media. You can find us on Instagram at worldwidepod and on Twitter and Facebook at worldwidepod11. Until next week, we hope that your eyes upon your goals continually are set. Worldwide, the Unchosen Church is also proud to support the hashtag #IGotOut movement, which empowers survivors of cults and other high-demand groups to share their stories online as a catalyst for education, prevention, and healing. Learn how you can share your story and support other survivors at IGotOut.org.